Dear Defenders, this is day 1029 of Russia's desperate invasion of Ukraine. New footage confirms North Koreans taking massive casualties in Kursk oblast. Also new details on the elimination of the Russian General Igor Kirillov in Moscow emerged. You're watching Only Facts with Operator Starsky, and we will talk about the most important updates right now. Approximately 100 wounded North Koreans arrived to a hospital in Kursk. We have a footage showing them being treated on a separate floor of the hospital. Russian sources reported that the DPRK soldiers receive rice, meat and soups, which, if you have ever tried Russian so-called cuisine, especially in a hospital, you probably understand that the bastards are fucked. Earlier, Security Service of Ukraine shared an intercepted call between a Russian terrorist and his wife who works at the Russian hospital. In this call, she leaked details on the North Korean losses. She said that 2 trains delivered approximately 220 wounded North Koreans in just 2 days. I assume that it happened shortly after the failed North Korean attack on Ukrainian positions last week. She also nagged about them not being able to speak Russian and things like that. And the reason Russians have to treat so many North Koreans nowadays is this. You can see strike on the mixed Russo-North Korean personnel not far from Plekhovo, Malaya Lokhnya in Kursk oblast. As it turned out, North Koreans have absolutely no combat experience, and whatever training they received from Russians is just as effective as it is for Russians themselves. Generally speaking, Russian military doctrine is not designed to preserve the lives of the personnel. It's designed to sacrifice enough Russians to reach a military objective. This is the only way of fighting the Russian invaders' weakened eyes. And I bet that those funny people who admire Russian terrorism on the internet would not really like to actually serve in the Russian army. For example, it's been quite a while since we saw footage of African mercenaries or Nepalese mercenaries being eliminated in Ukraine. And the reason is that they basically depleted. Russians literally ran out of African and Nepalese mercenaries as of this point. And remember a couple months ago when we talked about the deployment of DPRK troops in Russia for the first time, I told you that soon we will be enjoying FPV footage with the North Korean troops being obliterated. Well, that's exactly what we can see nowadays, for example, on a footage provided by Magyar or Ukraine's special forces. At this point, official Terror Russia denies the fact of DPRK's involvement, but it's a known fact that Russians always lie. Russian General Igor Kirillov, responsible for using combat chemicals against Ukrainian troops, has been eliminated in Moscow on 17th of December. As you probably know, he and his assistant were killed by an electric scooter. To be more precise, an explosive device has been installed on a scooter and detonated remotely when General, together with his assistant, were leaving the building. By the way, I always thought that those electric scooters were dangerous. So at this point we don't have any official confirmation, neither from the main Directorate of Intelligence of Ukraine, nor from Security Service of Ukraine. However, according to several Ukrainian media, the legendary Security Service of Ukraine were involved in this operation. As of today, more than 4,800 cases of using Russian combat chemicals against Ukrainian defenders were recorded, which basically made Igor Kirillov a legitimate target for the Ukrainian secret services. The US stated that they were not notified by Ukraine about this operation, but it's completely fine. Because let's be honest, nobody also notified Ukraine that security guarantees provided in the Budapest Memorandum were bullshit. Also, elimination of the Russian general became another proof that Ukrainian secret services have infiltrated Russia and find themselves being able to conduct all sorts of operations in Moscow, like, for example, elimination of Mikhail Shatsky, a Russian designer of cruise missiles, that was improved by Ukrainian secret agents last week. The Economist in its article reminded that despite being some of the most daring operations conducted by Ukrainian secret services in Russia, of course it wasn't the first one. And they also assume it was performed by 5th Department for the Counter-Espionage of Security Service of Ukraine. According to The Economist, this department developed complex networks of operations in Russia, and today most of the Russian war criminals can be targeted effectively. I mean, what else did Russians expect when they invaded Ukraine? You cannot avoid justice, but of course it's much safer to be tried by the International Crime Court somewhere in The Hague. It's just a small hint for those war criminals who want to survive the Russian collapse, which will inevitably happen. With that, my friends, I wish you all a beautiful day. See you in the commentaries. I'm Operator Starsky, and as always, be safe.